The doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Jake Morrison walked through them, his black uniform crisp and clean. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Park carried a datapad in her trembling hands. The weight of 10,000 dead colonists pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy stone. The chamber was huge. Curved walls rose up to a glass dome that showed the stars beyond. Floating platforms held the seats of the Galactic Council members. Each platform was different, built for the needs of each alien race. Some had water tanks. Others had heat lamps or gas vents. The air smelled strange, a mix of different atmospheres that made Jake's nose itch. 37 species had representatives here. Jake had studied them all during the long trip from Earth, the tall, thin Zenthari with their insect-like bodies, the crystal beings called Ashkari who spoke through light and color, the fish-like Nereids who needed water suits to breathe. All of them had been part of galactic society for thousands of years. All of them looked down at the two humans like they were children who had wandered into an adult meeting. Ambassador Thurs of the Zenthari Collective sat on the highest platform. His four arms moved as he spoke and his mandibles clicked together. "The humans request an audience," he announced. His voice came through a translator that made it sound cold and mechanical. "They come before us with urgent matters, they claim." Jake stepped forward. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor. He had practiced this speech for weeks during the journey. Every word mattered. Every pause had meaning. The fate of humanity's colonies hung on what happened in the next few minutes. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake began. His voice carried clearly in the chamber's perfect acoustics. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. I come before you today to request aid for human colonies under attack." A ripple of sound went through the chamber. Some aliens made clicking noises. Others flashed colors or released chemical scents. Jake could not understand most of it, but he recognized the tone. They were not taking him seriously. Dr. Park stepped up beside him and activated her datapad. A holographic display appeared above their heads. It showed the attack on Haven Prime 3 months ago. The peaceful farming world had been home to 10,000 colonists. They grew food that fed 12 other human settlements. The display showed Vorthak ships dropping from hyperspace. The Vorthak were a warrior race known for their cruelty. Their ships were dark and angular, built for war. The human defense ships looked like toys next to them. "The attack began at dawn local time," Jake said as the display played. "The colonists sent out distress calls, but help was too far away. The Vorthak gave no warning. They demanded no surrender. They simply opened fire." The hologram showed the orbital bombardment. Bright flashes lit up the planet's surface as the farms burned. The small human ships tried to fight back but were destroyed quickly. The display zoomed in on the colony's main settlement. Buildings melted under the heat of alien weapons. People ran through the streets, looking for shelter that did not exist. 10,000 civilians died in 6 hours. Jake continued. His voice stayed steady, but his hands clenched into fists. Men, women, and children. They were farmers, not soldiers. They had no weapons capable of fighting back. The hologram changed to show the mining station at Kepler 442. This attack was different but just as brutal. The Vorthak had boarded the station and taken everyone alive. The display showed empty corridors and abandoned work areas. 800 people had simply vanished. "We found evidence that the prisoners were taken to Vorthak slave markets," Lisa said. Her voice cracked slightly. "Our intelligence suggests they are being sold to the highest bidders across Vorthak space." The third attack had happened just 2 weeks ago. The research station at Wolf 359 had been studying new forms of medicine. The Vorthak had destroyed it completely, leaving nothing but debris and dead bodies floating in space. 3 attacks in 4 months, Jake said. Each one bolder than the last. Each one closer to Earth. "Our intelligence shows Vorthak fleets massing near the border. We believe they are planning a full invasion of human space." Jake paused and looked around the chamber. Some aliens were paying attention now. Others seemed bored. The Zenthari ambassador was cleaning his mandibles with one of his 4 hands. Humanity formally requests military aid from the Galactic Council, Jake said. We need ships, weapons, and troops to defend our colonies. In return, we offer trade agreements, scientific knowledge, and our full support for Council policies. The request hung in the air like smoke. Jake waited for a response. He had hoped for immediate support. The Galactic Council was supposed to protect member species from aggression. Humans had been members for 50 years. They had followed every rule, paid every tax, and respected every treaty. Ambassador Thies stood up on his platform. His arms spread wide and his mandibles clicked rapidly. The sound was translated as laughter. The Deathworlders seek protection, he said. How fascinating, how completely amusing. Other council members began to make sounds. The Ashkari flashed bright colors that translated to mockery. The Nereids released chemical signals that meant contempt. The chamber filled with alien laughter in a dozen different forms. Your species conquered your homeworld through violence alone, Thies continued. You wage war upon each other for entertainment. Your planet is a nightmare of predators and natural disasters. You call yourselves Deathworlders with pride. And now you come here begging for help like frightened children. Jake felt his face grow hot. Our past does not define our present, he said. Humans have been peaceful members of galactic society for half a century. We follow council law. We respect other species. You respect nothing, interrupted Counselor Vex of the Ashkari. Her crystal body pulsed with red light. Your species spreads across the galaxy like a disease. You build colonies on worlds that would kill any civilized being. You teach your children to fight before they can walk. You are savages pretending to be civilized. More laughter filled the chamber. Jake looked around desperately, searching for a friendly face. He found none. Even the species that had seemed sympathetic before now looked at him with disgust. The attacks on human colonies are unfortunate, said Counselor Mora of the Nereids. Her voice bubbled through her water suit. But perhaps they are natural consequences of human aggression. Violence attracts violence. The Vorthak may simply be responding to human provocations. Provocations? Lisa stepped forward, her datapad shaking in her hands. What provocations? Haven Prime was a farming world. Kepler 442 was a mining station. Wolf 359 was a medical research facility. These were civilians, not soldiers. All humans are soldiers, Thies said. It is your nature. You cannot escape what you are. The formal vote was quick and brutal. 35 species voted against providing aid to humanity. Only 2 abstained. 0 voted in favor. But the council did not stop there. Furthermore, Thies announced, the council imposes immediate trade restrictions on human space. No council member will provide weapons, military equipment, or strategic materials to human colonies until this matter is resolved. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. You are cutting off our supply lines while we are under attack? We are protecting galactic peace, Thies replied. Perhaps when humans learn proper behavior, they will be worthy of council protection. The session ended quickly after that. Jake and Lisa were escorted from the chamber by council security. As they walked through the corridors of the station, they could hear alien voices behind them. The voices were full of amusement and satisfaction. Captain Roy Baker was waiting for them at their ship. He was a military man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had served in 3 human wars before joining the Colonial Defense Force. He looked at their faces and knew the answer before they spoke. They said no, he stated. It was not a question. Worse, Jake replied. They cut off our supply lines. They think we deserve what is happening to us. Roy was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at the alien station floating in space above them. They think we are savages, he said quietly. Maybe it is time to show them what savages can really do. The ship pulled away from the station and jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their session, discussing trade routes and diplomatic ceremonies. They had already forgotten about the humans and their problems. They would remember soon enough. 6 months had passed since the Council's rejection. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, General Kate Foster walked through corridors that officially did not exist. The underground complex stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of people worked here in shifts that never stopped. The air hummed with activity and purpose. Kate's footsteps echoed as she made her way to the main command center. Her uniform was different now. Gone were the blue colors of the Colonial Defense Force. The new uniforms were black with red trim. The patches showed a burning Earth surrounded by stars. The message was clear to anyone who understood it. The command center was a vast room filled with screens and control stations. Officers moved between workstations with quiet efficiency. Data flowed across displays faster than the eye could follow. Ship movements, supply routes, training schedules, and construction reports all merged into a single picture. Colonel Sam Wright looked up from his engineering station as Kate approached. His face was thinner than it had been 6 months ago. None of them had been sleeping well since the Council's betrayal. "General," he said, "the Mars shipyards report completion of the first batch. 12 heavy cruisers ready for trials." Kate nodded and moved to the central display. It showed a three-dimensional map of human space. Red dots marked Vorthak fleet positions. Blue dots showed human colonies. Green dots marked the new ships under construction. The pattern was obvious to anyone with military training. The Vorthak were preparing for something big. Dr. Alex Chen emerged from a side office carrying a thick folder. He was a thin man with nervous hands, but his work was crucial to their plans. "General, the psychological profiles are complete. We have identified 2,000 volunteers for the first phase." "Are you certain about this?" Kate asked. She had read Alex's reports, but the implications still troubled her. "Once we start down this path, there is no going back." Alex opened his folder and pulled out a data pad. "The conditioning is reversible in theory," he said, "but the volunteers will be changed forever. We are essentially unlocking the parts of human nature that civilization has spent centuries suppressing." Kate looked at the profiles on Alex's screen. Each one showed a human face. Men and women from across the colonies. Some were soldiers who had lost friends in the attacks. Others were civilians whose families had died. All of them had volunteered for something they did not fully understand. "They know the risks?" she asked. "They know enough," Alex replied. "They know we are creating a new type of soldier. They know it will be dangerous. They know they may not survive the process. And they all still want to do it." The conditioning program was based on decades of research into human psychology. Alex and his team had studied the warriors of ancient Earth, Vikings, Spartans, samurai, and others who had embraced violence as a way of life. They had found the genetic and psychological triggers that made humans so effective at war. The process would take weeks for each volunteer: chemical treatments to enhance reflexes and pain tolerance, psychological conditioning to remove hesitation and fear, training programs that pushed human bodies to their absolute limits. The result would be soldiers unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Lieutenant Beth Adams entered the command center carrying a secure communication device. She was young but had already proven herself as an intelligence officer. Her team had been gathering information about the Vorthak for months. "General, we have the latest reports from behind enemy lines," Beth said. She activated the device and a holographic display appeared above the command table. "The Vorthak are massing here, here, and here." Red dots appeared on the map. "Our estimates put their total fleet strength at over 400 ships." Kate studied the positions. The Vorthak were being methodical. They were positioning forces to cut off human supply lines while preparing for a direct assault on Earth. It was a good plan, assuming their enemy would fight like other galactic species. "What about their tactics?" Kate asked. Beth switched the display to show recordings of Vorthak battles. The footage came from various conflicts across the galaxy. "They follow traditional patterns," she said. "Long-range engagements, formal battle lines. They demand surrender before major assaults. Honor codes govern most of their actions." Kate smiled for the first time in weeks. "They have never fought humans before." The display changed again to show the new human ships under construction. The Designs were radical departures from standard galactic vessels. Where other species built ships for efficiency and speed, humans built them for war. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Multiple weapon systems provided redundant firepower. Ramming spikes extended from reinforced prows. The aliens think, "These designs are primitive," Sam said. "They do not understand why we build ships to take damage instead of avoiding it." "They will understand soon enough," Kate replied. Dr. Lisa Park appeared on one of the communication screens. She was aboard a ship near the outer colonies, coordinating evacuation efforts. "General, the civilians are asking questions. They want to know why we are moving so many people." "Tell them it is a precautionary measure," Kate said. "They do not need to know about Operation Prometheus yet." Operation Prometheus was the code name for humanity's response to the Vorthak threat. The name came from the ancient myth of the Titan, who brought fire to humanity. The fire they were bringing now would burn across the galaxy. The operation had 3 phases. Phase 1 involved the evacuation of non-essential personnel from frontier colonies. Phase 2 was the construction of new ships and the training of new soldiers. Phase 3 would begin when the Vorthak attacked. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on another screen. He was aboard the new flagship Vengeance conducting training exercises near Jupiter. "Kate, we have a problem. Several alien observers have been asking questions about our military exercises." "What kind of questions?" Kate asked. "They want to know why we are training for close-quarters combat in space. They think it is wasteful and dangerous. Some have filed complaints with the Council." Kate looked at the various screens around her. Jake on his ship, Lisa coordinating evacuations, Sam overseeing construction, Alex preparing the psychological conditioning, Beth gathering intelligence, all of them working toward the same goal. "Let them complain," she said. "The Council made their position clear 6 months ago. They want us to handle this ourselves. We are simply following their advice." The truth was more complex. Humanity had learned a hard lesson about galactic politics. The other species saw humans as violent primitives who were useful for dangerous jobs but not worthy of respect or protection. The Council's rejection had been a wake-up call. For 50 years, humanity had tried to fit into galactic society. They had suppressed their aggressive instincts and followed alien rules. They had built diplomatic ships instead of warships. They had focused on exploration instead of conquest. They had tried to be civilized by galactic standards, the Vorthak. Attacks had shown the price of that civilization. While humans debated and negotiated, their colonies burned. While they appealed to the Council for help, their people died. The galaxy's rules protected only those strong enough to enforce them. Captain Roy Baker entered the command center carrying orders from Earth's government. He looked older than his years, worn down by months of preparation and planning. "General, the authorization has come through. Phase 2 is officially approved." Kate took the orders and read them carefully. The language was formal and bureaucratic, but the meaning was clear. Humanity was abandoning 50 years of peaceful policy. They were going back to their roots as a species that had conquered the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. "Begin the conditioning program," Kate ordered. "Full authorization for Dr. Chen's protocols." Alex nodded and left to begin his work. Within hours, the first volunteers would enter the conditioning chambers. They would emerge weeks later as something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. "Sam, increase production at all shipyards. I want 100 ships ready within 3 months." Sam saluted and returned to his station. The shipyards would work around the clock now. Humanity's industrial capacity would be pushed to its limits. "Beth, I want to know everything about Vorthak fleet movements. Every ship, every base, every supply line." Beth gathered her files and headed for the intelligence section. Her teams would work harder now, gathering the information needed for what was coming. Jake's image flickered on the main screen. "Kate, what are our rules of engagement?" Kate looked around the command center one final time. 6 months ago, these people had been diplomats and peacekeepers. Now they were preparing for total war. The transformation was almost complete. "There are no rules, Jake," she said quietly. "The Council made it clear that we are on our own. When the Vorthak come, we respond with everything we have, no mercy, no quarter, no limits. Jake nodded grimly. Understood, vengeance out. The screen went dark, and Kate was alone with her thoughts. In a few months, the Vorthak would attack. They expected to face the same peaceful humans who had appealed to the Council for help. Instead, they would face something that had been sleeping in human genetics for generations. The Deathworlders were preparing to show the galaxy what they could really do. And when the fire began to burn, it would consume everything in its path. The alarm rang through the command center at exactly 0347 hours, Earth time. Admiral Jake Morrison was awake instantly, his body responding to months of conditioning and preparation. The red lights that filled his cabin told him everything he needed to know. The Vorthak had finally come. He reached the bridge of the Vengeance in less than 2 minutes. The massive view screen showed space filled with enemy ships. Hundreds of dark, angular vessels dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their weapons were already charging, ready to deliver the killing blow to humanity's home system. Report, Jake ordered as he settled into the command chair. Commander Nick Carter looked up from his tactical station. His face was calm, but his eyes held the cold fire that the conditioning program had given all of them. 437 Vorthak ships, sir. They are moving into standard attack formation. Long-range bombardment vessels in the rear, assault ships in front. Jake studied the enemy formation on his screen. It was exactly what Lieutenant Beth Adams had predicted. The Vorthak were following their traditional battle plans. They expected the humans to respond with similar tactics. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Signal all ships, Jake said. Execute Plan Omega. Across human space, dormant systems came to life. Hidden weapons platforms activated near asteroid fields. Stealth ships that had been drifting silent for months suddenly powered up their engines. The trap that humanity had spent 6 months preparing was finally springing. Admiral Zortak commanded the Vorthak fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was a veteran of dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. He had crushed the resistance of 20 different species. Humans would be no different from the others. Begin the bombardment, he ordered his weapons officer. Target their orbital defenses first. Show them the price of resisting the Vorthak Empire. The first wave of missiles streaked toward Earth's defense platforms. Zortak expected to see them destroyed in brilliant explosions. Instead, something impossible happened. The human platforms began moving. They broke formation and scattered like startled fish. Sir, his sensor officer called out, the human defense grid is not where our intelligence said it would be. They have mobile platforms instead of fixed ones. Zortak clicked his mandibles in annoyance. Primitive tactics. They waste energy on movement instead of weapons. Continue the attack. The second wave of Vorthak missiles found their targets. But the results were not what Zortak expected. The human platforms absorbed hits that should have destroyed them. Their armor was crude but incredibly thick. They kept fighting even after suffering massive damage. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the humans, his communications officer reported. Put it on screen, Zortak ordered. Let us hear their surrender. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the Vorthak flagship's main display. His uniform was black with red trim, and his eyes held no fear. Admiral Zortak, I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force. You are in violation of human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Zortak laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. Consequences? From Deathworld savages? You should be begging for mercy, not making demands. We tried begging once, Jake replied. The galaxy was not interested, so we decided to handle things ourselves. The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his weapons officer. Fire. The Vengeance opened fire with weapons the Vorthak had never seen before. Instead of energy beams or guided missiles, the human ship launched solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Kinetic kill vehicles that tore through Vorthak shields like they were made of paper. Zortak watched in shock as 3 of his escort ships were destroyed in seconds. What kind of weapons are those? He demanded. Unknown technology, sir, his science officer replied. They appear to be using mass drivers. Extremely primitive, but effective at close range. Close range? Zortak looked at his tactical display. They are still 50,000 kilometers away. That is not close range. But the humans were closing. Fast. Their ships moved in ways that violated every principle of civilized space combat. Instead of maintaining formation and exchanging fire at safe distances, they were charging directly at the Vorthak fleet. Captain Nick Carter piloted his destroyer Iron Fist toward the enemy flagship. His ship had been built for one purpose: ramming. The reinforced prow could punch through the hull of any known vessel. The crew had trained for months to survive the impact. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "we are on collision course with their command ship. Impact in 90 seconds. "Good," Nick replied. "All hands brace for ramming speed." Zortak stared at his screens in disbelief. The human ship was not changing course. It was accelerating directly toward his flagship. "They cannot be serious. That is suicide." "Should we destroy them, sir?" his weapons officer asked. "Of course. Destroy them. Fire everything." The Eternal Conquest unleashed its full firepower at the approaching human ship. Energy beams and missiles converged on the Iron Fist. The human vessel took hit after hit, its armor glowing red-hot from the impacts. But it did not stop. "Impossible," Zortak whispered. "Nothing can survive that much damage." The Iron Fist struck, the Eternal Conquest at full speed. The reinforced prow punched through the Vorthak hull like a spear through paper. Both ships spun wildly as they separated, trailing debris and atmosphere. The Vorthak flagship was crippled, its command systems destroyed. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships fought like wild animals instead of civilized warriors. They used ramming attacks, close-range weapons, and tactics that the Vorthak had never encountered. Ships continued fighting even after suffering damage that should have forced them to surrender. On Luna Base, Colonel Beth Adams watched the space battle from the command bunker. Vorthak assault ships were landing on the lunar surface, disgorging troops that expected quick victory. They were about to meet humanity's new soldiers. The first Vorthak troops to enter the base corridors were elite warriors. They wore powered armor and carried advanced weapons. They had conquered dozens of worlds using the same tactics. They expected the humans to surrender or flee in terror. Instead, they found soldiers who fought like demons. Sergeant Tony Walsh led the defense of DO, Section 7. He and his men had undergone Dr. Alex Chen's conditioning program. The process had unlocked something primal in their minds. They no longer felt fear or hesitation. They existed only to destroy their enemies. The Vorthak entered the corridor in perfect formation, their weapons ready. Tony waited until they were close, then triggered the trap. Explosive charges brought down the ceiling, crushing half the enemy squad. The survivors found themselves facing humans who attacked with improvised weapons and bare hands. "They are not stopping," one Vorthak warrior reported over his comm system. "I have shot one human 3 times and he is still fighting." Tony grabbed the alien by the throat and slammed him against the wall. The Vorthak's armor cracked under the impact. The alien tried to raise his weapon, but Tony tore it from his hands and used it to club another enemy. All across the base, similar battles raged. The Vorthak had expected to face disciplined soldiers who would retreat when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they found humans who fought with a savagery that defied understanding. Back in space, Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the battle from his damaged bridge. The Vengeance had taken multiple hits, but her thick armor held. Around him, the space battle was turning into something unprecedented in galactic history. "Sir," Commander Carter reported, "the enemy is requesting a ceasefire." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet was in chaos. Dozens of their ships had been destroyed or crippled. The survivors were breaking formation and trying to retreat. "Denied," Jake said simply. "Continue the attack." But the real shock was yet to come. Dr. Lisa Park's voice came over the comm system from her position in the outer system. "Jake, Phase 3 is now active. Retribution fleet is jumping in." New contacts appeared on the tactical display. Human ships materialized near 3 different Vorthak worlds simultaneously. These were not the defensive forces that Zortak expected. They were attack fleets armed with humanity's most advanced weapons. General Kate Foster commanded the assault on Vorthak Prime from her flagship Prometheus. Her target was not the planet itself, but the massive military shipyard in orbit. The facility had been building warships for centuries. It was the heart of Vorthak military power. "All ships, begin the bombardment," Kate ordered. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that turned the night side of Vorthak Prime into day. Kinetic bombardment systems launched tungsten rods at orbital velocity. The impacts created mushroom clouds visible from space. The shipyard, built to construct the most powerful vessels in the galaxy, was reduced to glowing debris in minutes. Similar attacks struck Vorthak military bases on 2 other worlds. The humans were not trying to conquer territory. They were demonstrating their ability to destroy anything they chose to target. Admiral Zortak, trapped on his crippled flagship, watched the reports flooding in. 3 major military installations destroyed. His invasion fleet shattered. Human ships appearing in places they should not be able to reach. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving surrender requests from all 3 target worlds." Zortak stared at the tactical display. In 6 hours, the humans had accomplished what should have taken months. They had broken the back of Vorthak military power, using tactics that no civilized species would employ. "Open a channel to the human, Admiral," he said quietly. Jake Morrison's face appeared on screen again. This time there was no mockery in Zortak's expression, only fear. "We surrender," Zortak said. "We request terms." Jake's smile was cold and terrible. "You started this war, Admiral. We will finish it. Unconditional surrender only. All Vorthak military forces will stand down immediately. Any resistance will be met with the complete destruction of your civilization." The transmission ended, and Zortak was left staring at empty space. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would never come. The Vorthak Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for generations, had been broken in a single day. The Deathworlders had brought fire to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the Vorthak surrender, the same council chamber that had mocked humanity's plea filled with whispered conversations. The curved walls that had once echoed with alien laughter now trembled with fear. Representatives from 37 species sat in their floating platforms, but none of them felt safe anymore. Admiral Jake Morrison walked through the chamber doors wearing his new black uniform. The red trim seemed to glow under the chamber's lights. Behind him came General Kate Foster and Dr. Lisa Park. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence that fell over the room. The humans were no longer supplicants begging for help. They moved, with the confidence of conquerors. Their eyes held the cold fire that had burned through Vorthak space like a plague. The aliens who had once looked down on them now avoided making eye contact. Ambassador Thais of the Zenthari Collective stood on his platform. His forearms trembled slightly as he spoke. "Admiral Morrison, the Council wishes to congratulate humanity on your victory over the Vorthak Empire. We are pleased that this threat to galactic peace has been eliminated." Jake stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at the alien diplomat. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "That is interesting. 3 weeks ago you refused to help us when we faced extinction. You mocked our dead and cut off our supply lines. Now you want to congratulate us?" Thais's mandibles clicked nervously. "The Council recognizes that perhaps our initial response was inadequate. We are prepared to offer full support for reconstruction efforts in human space." "Reconstruction?" General Kate Foster stepped forward. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had broken an empire in 6 hours. "There is nothing to reconstruct, Ambassador. We won." The true scope of humanity's victory was still sinking in across the galaxy. Intelligence reports painted a picture that most species found impossible to believe. The Vorthak Empire, which had existed for over 1,000 years, no longer existed. Their military forces had been destroyed or captured. Their core worlds were under human occupation. Dr. Lisa Park activated a holographic display above their heads. It showed the current military situation in what had once been Vorthak space. Blue dots marked human ships and bases. Red dots showed the locations of former Vorthak installations. There were far more blue dots than red ones. The former Vorthak Empire is now under human administration, Lisa explained. We have established military governments on 12 worlds. Vorthak military personnel are being processed in detention facilities. Their ships and weapons have been confiscated. Counselor Vex of the Ashkari flashed colors that translated to disbelief. You cannot simply occupy sovereign worlds. The Council has laws governing military conflicts. There are proper procedures for— The Council has no authority in human space, Jake interrupted. You made that clear 6 months ago when you refused our request for aid. The chamber erupted in a chaos of alien voices. Some species protested the human actions. Others demanded explanations. A few remained silent, calculating how this new reality would affect their own interests. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We no longer recognize Council authority over human affairs. We will establish our own government in the territory we now control. Ambassador Thiss's mandibles clicked, frantically. You cannot simply leave the Council. There are treaties, agreements, trade relationships, all null and void, Kate said. Humanity tried to work within the galactic system for 50 years. When we needed help, the system failed us, so we are creating a new system. The humans had indeed created something new. The Human Defense Coalition now controlled territory spanning 15 star systems. It included not only former human colonies, but also the conquered Vorthak worlds. The new government operated under principles that horrified galactic civilization. What about the rights of non-human species in your territory? Asked Counselor Mora of the Nereids. The Council has received reports of forced relocations and military conscription. Dr. Lisa Park smiled coldly. Non-human species in coalition. Space have the same rights they gave us when we asked for help. None. The truth was more complex but no less disturbing to galactic observers. The Human Defense Coalition offered protection to any species willing to accept human military authority. Those who resisted were relocated to neutral territory. Those who actively opposed human rule simply disappeared. Captain Roy Baker, now a general, had overseen the integration of several alien populations into the new system. Species that demonstrated loyalty to human leadership were treated well. They received protection, resources, and a voice in local government, but that voice was always secondary to human authority. The coalition is open to new members, Jake announced. Any species that can prove its value to human interests is welcome to apply for membership. Prove its value? Theiss asked. What does that mean? Military service, Kate replied simply. The coalition is a military alliance. Member species contribute forces to our defense fleets. In return, they receive protection from external threats, the me. Implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity was not just replacing the Vorthak Empire. They were creating something larger and more dangerous. A military confederation built around human leadership and human values. Counselor Vex pulsed with angry red light. You are creating a warrior state, a civilization built on violence and conquest. This is exactly what the galaxy feared from Deathworlders. Jake's expression did not change. The galaxy had nothing to fear from us when we followed your rules. We were peaceful members of galactic society for 50 years. We traded fairly, respected treaties, and harmed no one. And when we needed help, you abandoned us to die. He paused and looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching him. Some showed fear. Others displayed anger or disgust. None showed the mockery that had filled this room 6 months ago. You called us Deathworlders like it was an insult, Jake continued. You said we were savages pretending to be civilized. You were right about one thing. We were pretending, but we are not pretending anymore. The chamber fell silent as the full meaning of his words sank in. For 50 years, humanity had suppressed its natural instincts to fit into galactic society. They had built diplomatic ships instead of warships. They had chosen negotiation over conquest. They had tried to be the peaceful species the galaxy wanted them to be. The Vorthak attacks and the Council's betrayal had ended that experiment. Humanity had embraced its nature as apex predators from a world that killed everything weak. The results spoke for themselves. The Coalition will protect any species that accepts our authority, Kate said. We will destroy any species that threatens our interests. The choice is yours to make. Several alien representatives began speaking at once, but Jake held up his hand for silence. There is one more thing you should know. Our intelligence indicates that other aggressive species are watching the situation with interest. The Scorvan Raiders have been mobilizing fleets near the Galactic Rim. The Hegemony has been testing border defenses in 3 sectors. Lisa activated the display again, showing fleet movements across galactic space. The pattern was clear to anyone with military experience. Multiple hostile powers were preparing to test the new balance of power. The Council's weakness invited these threats, Jake said. Your inability to protect member species has emboldened every predator in the galaxy. The Vorthak were just the beginning. Ambassador Theis's voice was barely a whisper. What are you suggesting? Nothing, Jake replied. We are simply informing you of the situation. How you choose to respond is your decision. The Coalition will protect its own interests. The message was clear. Humanity would not come to the rescue if other species faced attack. The galaxy's other peaceful civilizations would have to defend themselves or accept the consequences of their weakness. Dr. Alex Chen appeared on one of the communication screens. He was aboard a Coalition ship near the border, monitoring the situation. Admiral, we are detecting Scorvan scout ships in Sector 7. They appear to be testing our response. Jake nodded. Deploy the 3rd Fleet to intercept. Rules of engagement are free fire. The transmission ended, and Jake turned back to the Council. As you can see, we have other matters to attend to. The Coalition has borders to patrol and enemies to destroy. The humans turned to leave, but Ambassador Theis called out one last desperate question. What about diplomacy? What about negotiation? Surely civilized beings can find peaceful solutions to their problems. Jake paused at the chamber entrance and looked back at the alien diplomat. We tried diplomacy once, Ambassador. We came to you with our problems and asked for help. You laughed at us and turned us away. His eyes swept across the assembled representatives one final time. You taught us that in this galaxy, only the strong survive. Thank you for the lesson. The humans left the chamber, and the great doors closed behind them with a final, echoing thud. The Galactic Council sat in stunned silence, contemplating a future where Deathworlders ruled a third of known space. Outside the station, the Coalition fleet waited. Hundreds of ships built for war, crewed by soldiers who knew no fear. They had brought fire to the galaxy, and that fire would burn until every threat was ash. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human dominance had begun. 3 months later, the Scorvan Raiders would attack a Coalition border world. They would discover what the Vorthak had learned too late. When Deathworlders went to war, they did not fight to win battles. They fought to eliminate enemies completely. The galaxy had mocked humanity's plea for help. Now they would live forever with the consequences of that choice.